Good morning, evening, night, or afternoon, everybody. You're tuning into the Spiritual Net Worth Podcast, and I'm your host, Joshua Sutton. Today, we have a great conversation lined up for you guys. I'm excited for you guys to see it. I just wanted to make sure I kind of open this up here. I didn't do a proper intro in the actual recording, but I do want to say one quick thing as well, is that there was technical difficulties in the recording. We didn't get to actually finish the whole conversation, and I will fix that issue with further episodes. We're not going to have that problem anymore. I also got cut off. Actually, I got cut off every guest I've done, I've had technical issues with. So I'm going to fix that problem. I'm going to change it. It's not a big deal anymore. But we didn't get to fully express all the ideas that we're talking about in the video. So hope you guys enjoy it. Let's just jump right into it. And let me know what you think in the comments. So what are you drinking today?
Americano.
So we had actually had a conversation about the history of Americano, which is trippy to me. I had no idea.
I'm not sure how accurate it is.
I'm needing to expand my horizons a little bit coffee wise, because I just only drink black coffee. Like I've had, I guess lighter roast and some cream and sugar there and here and there, but I'm always gonna pick that black coffee. So if I can take an Americano sometimes too, that's very beneficial to have that.
Oh yeah, have you ever done just like an espresso shot?
Actually, I haven't.
Yeah. Oh wow.
Somehow I haven't.
That's where you should start. If I can make a recommendation.
Okay. Yeah.
Start out with just an espresso shot. It'll get your taste buds kind of going and kind of.
Okay.
It's an exciting drink. It's exciting because it's not something that you drink. You know, it's not something that you're going to pound back. It's probably, I don't know how many ounces a espresso shot is, but it's like 1 to 2 ounces of liquid, and basically just a compressed version of coffee, and it hits you right back here, and it's great. It's lovely. And I wasn't a huge coffee fan until recently. I've gotten really into it.
That's interesting. Yeah, no idea. So espresso, I don't know why I always put an X in there.
I used to too.
Espresso is literally just condensed coffee.
Yeah, so it's just ground. It's just finely ground coffee. So the finer the grind on the coffee bean, the stronger the coffee is, right? Okay. So if it's a very coarse grind, and it's becoming so popular to grind your own beans at home, so you can get a grinder from Amazon for super cheap, and you can adjust the grind on it. So the finer the grind, the stronger the coffee.
Oh, okay.
Right, and espresso is just finely ground coffee, same beans, same exact beans that we would use for drip coffee, but it is it's finely ground, and then you compress it into a puck, put it into an espresso machine, and it's very hot water that is kind of forcibly forced through the really fine coffee grounds, and it gives it this almost creamy, creamy coffee. Bitter, super bitter. So sometimes it'll get you, and whenever you have it for the first time, it's kind of like it to me it's almost like probably the first time you ever had like pickle juice or something. Does it taste the same?
Yeah.
But it kind of gets you in the same way.
You're not selling the espresso by mentioning pickle juice, by the way.
That's probably a bad thing. Let's rewind that. Let's cut that out if you don't mind.
But no, that sounds really good though. And then I love the intentionality behind coffee, like just how much you can pour into it, and no pun intended. Really get into all of that, like the fine details of all. Well, also, no pun intended with the fine too.
Yeah, so true.
I love coffee, man.
So true. Me too.
Super cool.
Me too.
To do all that.
I love coffee. There's something about coffee that that tea doesn't have. I don't know, because I used to drink a lot of tea, right? And there's not a deep love for tea the way that there's a deep love for coffee.
Especially here in the West.
Yeah,
I don't know what it is.
That's true. It might be different. That's such a good point. It totally may be different in different parts of the world where there is a deep love for tea, green tea and hot teas and stuff. But it's interesting because, you know, the whenever I was digging into tea deeper, I was kind of blown away that there's generally, you know, one type of tea leaf that, depending on how old or young the tea leaf is, and then different herbs and spices and things you put into it, that's how you change the taste profile of tea. Same way with coffee. It's like where the coffee is grown. You know, what part of the oh gosh, how do they call that? Like the coffee belt. Like there's parts of Brazil and Ecuador, and like there's like a certain part of the world where that's where coffee is grown, and that's like the best coffee is grown in this coffee belt region. But back to what I was just thinking is that you don't generally have like a deep love for tea here in the US, right? Yeah. Might be different around the world, but for some reason we just love our coffee. And there's, you know, how many people do you know that have coffee tattoos compared to tea tattoos? You know,
not many.
Right? Yeah,
it's definitely something that it's very social. Obviously, I mean, look at us right now. It brings us together. We we really we have like a kind of a business culture or a social culture around coffee. Like, and not even just like in the morning time, multiple times a day as well. It's very interesting.
Yeah, so true. So true. It's like beer. It's like a social, you know, what do they call it? They call beer a social lubricant, in the same way that like that coffee could be, except, you know, probably way different because it gets us excited and like, you know, we'll start talking a mile a minute and
or we can also do decaf too.
Animated. Yeah, that's true. Absolutely. Wow. Yeah, you can do decaf and it's amazing.
It's like a platform. Like coffee itself is like a social platform, if you will, like a non-intoxicant platform.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Yeah. Wow. Never thought about that.
Yeah, so true. Yeah, and you decided to do your podcast in a coffee shop.
Yes.
Which is super cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
We got to do a whole coffee podcast, or like a tea or beverage coffee podcast. Yeah.
That would be amazing.
Be sick.
That would be so cool. Yeah, and you can get somebody in who could speak to the different beans and different roasts, and, you know, Alex at you know, Black Lodge, and he's so phenomenal with his roasting knowledge and what he does with roasting. It's
David
super
too.
Cool.
At Lawman currently,
absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. We just nerded out on coffee for a bit.
That's okay. I like it. I like it.
So I wanted to ask you. So how is I know I sent you a question that was one thing, but I'm gonna expand it a little bit, because what we do here is we talk about our week within the community.
Oh, sure.
Like, how's our week been? So how's your week been?
I'll be as honest as possible.
Yes.
My week has been a little bit of a roller coaster. So, like always, you know, if you own your own business and you know, I'm a business owner and have been for 8 years. You know, whenever you own your own business, and there's never a boring week, you know, and you know, as you're, you know, being an entrepreneur yourself and digging into what you're doing, it's always exciting, you know, it's always exciting. So yeah, a little bit of a roller coaster from a business side of things, just with projects that are hitting and deadlines that are hitting and things like that I don't wouldn't want to bore you with, but it is I feel super grateful for it, even if it is a total roller coaster half the time, and you know, weeks are interesting, and we were just talking before the podcast started about film projects, because you have a film project and I have a film project, and you know, deadlines are amazing things that you blow past sometimes. A film project that was slated to take me a year, or at least I projected it to take a year. You know, I thought, this is going to take a year to complete. It has now passed the 2.5 year mark of working on it. So hopefully within 3 years, surely I can get this thing done.
Do you think that if you set 3 years, then and it's going to be like 6 years?
Oh yeah, probably. Yeah. So there's this really interesting, a thing called Parkinson's law, and I think it's really, really apt to any creative endeavor. And I hope I'm getting this right, but it's essentially like Parkinson's law states that work will expand, or a creative work will expand whatever time you allot for it. So if you allot a year for a film project, or 10 years for a film project, then it's going to take that amount of time in order to accomplish it, right? This is maybe a bad example because we've both blown past our deadlines. Or I don't know if you had a deadline for yours. Did you have a deadline for yours?
I think we did, yeah. I want to say it was a year to begin with. But the production was already so, like, it was interesting to begin with, so I don't even know. But yeah, so you're saying that if you set a year, it's going to fill the year.
Right.
Oh, like, so that, like, is that to say that kind of like if you have a table in your house, you're going to put stuff on top of it, like you're just going to fill up space?
That is that I've never thought about it like that, but that's so true. It's like a desk. If you have a huge desk, you're going to fill up that entire desk. Yeah. But if you have a small desk, then you're going to minimize. You're going to have a smaller area. Say, apartment space, living spaces, tiny homes, these types of trends. Super interesting. But yes, very, very similar. It kind of applies that, once we set those boundaries, that we're going to fill up that space. Like a film or a project that you set a deadline for 10 years is going to be probably a way different end project, right? The end result's going to be probably pretty different. But it's interesting to think about it. And I often think about that at Blackstrap Media, which is the ad agency that I own, but also with documentary film projects and any types of projects that I'm working on the side. I think, what's a realistic deadline here, and how can I make sure that I'm not just setting a 10-year timeline that I'm going to fill with a bunch of stuff that I know my personality, it probably will be 9 years of useless, like whatever in the beginning, but the film will probably be made in the last 6 months or something. Like that's like my personality is that I will, in the film right now, the documentary that I'm working on right now is the vast majority of it has been cut together, and I'm editing. I'm in the post-production phase right now, so I'm editing in a basement office at the house, and I'm editing. I'm working on this thing, and I think that I've probably the vast majority of it has been assembled within the last month. Okay, whereas I've been working on it for 2.5 years with other people too, like with a production crew and other producers who are working on it. So it's not just me, but it's interesting how the most work is done at that very last stage. It's like I've heard a lot of interviews lately about filmmakers and directors, and they'll talk about how when the pressure is on, that's whenever a scene becomes something special. Like, it's about to rain, or we're about to lose this location. They're going to kick us out of the coffee shop. We got like 15 minutes to shoot this scene. Yeah. That's whenever something special happens. And maybe it's the pressure of the moment, the pressure on the actors, the pressure on the production crew, whoever it might be. But that's whenever something special happens, is whenever there's a large amount of pressure.
Well, so much of this industry is hurry up and wait. So I think everyone's pretty much conditioned to that. Like, oh snap, we got to do this right now. So everyone get in gear. They're shooting this scene. They don't need, craft services right now. So let's just kind of wait. Like, it's a lot of that balance right there. But that's very interesting. So time-wise, do you think that if you were to take on a project, you should like almost maybe cut a quarter of the time off of what you think? So if you think it's going to be 10 years, maybe you should do 7 years to kind of really push yourself. Or maybe if you think you should do it like you naturally want to do it in a year, say, 6 months. Especially if you're going to blow past it anyways. Right. So really just push yourself to try to get it done in 6 months.
Yeah. I think that would be
kind of like the smaller desk.
Right. Thing. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's, I guess it's probably different for all of us, right?
Yeah.
Different approaches to it. But yeah, I'm a fan of small desk. I like small desk. And if I accidentally get a big desk, I will fill it with a bunch of useless stuff and be way sloppier than if I were to have a small desk. You know, I'm much neater. I'm much more purposeful whenever I have a condensed area. You know, if I have a bigger house, I'm going to fill it with a bunch of junk that I don't need. If I have a small space, then that's whenever I'm going to be really mindful of what I decide to put in it.
Every inch counts.
Yes, right? Yeah. Whereas if you have something that's big and vast, and it's like, yeah, you almost feel obligated to fill it.
Yes.
It's like a film project, right? You feel obligated to film it, to fill it with useless scenes that maybe should be cut.
That's very fascinating. I'm so glad we thought about that.
I know,
that's
right?
Cool.
Yeah, that's
I'm
so
not going to
true.
look at projects totally differently. Like, you know what? Like, what kind of desk is this project right now?
Yes. Yeah. What kind of desk? Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. So true.
So I want to ask you too. So what's something that brings you alive? Like, so we talked about work. So one of my questions was, what's your work and what do you do? And I think we already kind of talked about that. And the point here at the Spiritual Net Worth is to kind of bridge the gap between the work life and the personal life, because it's always intertwined, always, no matter how much you try to separate it. And I think it's important to highlight what is something that outside of work brings you alive, because of course that's going to also affect your work and vice versa. So what is something that brings you alive? Yeah,
that's a great question. And it's interesting the way that you framed it too, that we spend so much time trying to separate our work life, you know, like the work-life balance thing is so big, you know, but that it's impossible to do that. And it's kind of sad to think that you would need to do that.
Right? Yeah.
You know, like shouldn't we all be doing something that makes us feel, you know, motivated and happy and, you know, fulfilled in life? I mean, happiness is maybe not as important. You know, you could be fulfilled, super fulfilled, and happiness is just one kind of side effect of being fulfilled. But that's a really good point in the way that you frame that, which is like, yeah, in theory, we would be thrilled not to have work-life balance, because our work would be fulfilling and beautiful and you know, and really good for us overall. But I think that the things that motivate me, that bring me alive, the way that you say it, and this has changed obviously over the past 10 years or so, but things that motivate me now are my kids, my family. Like, I've got a 10-year-old, a 10-year-old, a 4-year-old. He just turned 4 2 weekends ago, and then a 1-year-old. So to to see them and to play with them and to live life with a beautiful family that I'm just, I don't know. It sounds cheesy. It's like stereotypical, that you do things for your family. But that's what really motivates me now. Pre-kids, pre-family, I was motivated and, kind of brought alive by trying to find emotional truths maybe, or emotional, I would write a lot. I would read a lot. Sorry, not read a lot. I would read scripts a lot, not books a lot. I'm not a very literate person whenever it comes to reading books. I don't want to be fake like that. I definitely don't read books, but reading scripts, writing scripts, watching films, I love film because it embodies emotion so well, and it does something that no other art form does. It is totally unique in the way that it can combine music with visuals, and you can have a scene where someone says absolutely nothing. You can have a scene that has zero dialogue, zero music, and you just look into someone's eyes, like yours right now, and you just feel so much emotion from that. That's
2001: A Space Odyssey.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, totally. Yeah, 2001. Interstellar is pretty light on dialogue too, which I know you love. Yeah.
There's so many. Have you seen Dune?
Oh, I've not seen it yet.
Oh,
no.
my goodness.
Do I need to?
I'm not even going to start with that one because I don't want to get derailed off of what you're saying, because you're making a very good point.
Sure.
I'm sorry I even brought up Dune. But But no, that's
We can circle back to Dune.
yes. What you said about film is so true. I want to touch on that real quick too, because I'm not a big book reader, and my dad's a librarian, so I've been very challenged in that area to be. And a lot of people I've been around too have been very into reading, and I've always felt guilty about not being a reader, but I've just gotten so much from film. Like, on the surface, it can seem like less intellectually challenging or less, like I guess, intellectually stimulating because you're sitting there watching a screen, everything's doing the work for you. But no, there's so much of it. There's a certain literacy to come from it, especially if you really pour into learning it. I mean, like aspect ratios. Like, trust me, I study that and research that, and I think about what the psychology of what a frame is. Lighting, color theory, all that stuff. Like, why are all these things here, and what meaning can I get from it? Like, there's so much you can read from the screen. So just to kind of add to what you're saying, to add my own personal depth to that, like, yeah, there's so much to read from a motion picture. Same thing with music and photography as well, if that was your thing.
That's so true. That's so true. And the things that you touched on are like visual literacies, right? So it almost feels like, yeah, maybe we're not as well read as what previous generations, your dad's generation, my parents' generation, like, we're probably not as well read as them, but what we have that the other generations might not is a visual literacy that is way advanced, because we think about these things, right? And if you think about like the original motion picture of the train coach driving into the station, and the first time anyone saw that, they freaked out because they thought the train was going to crash into the building. They thought the train was going to like run them over. And that was because their visual literacy was so young still. It wasn't developed yet. And now we're to the point to where you're thinking about how an aspect ratio can speak to an emotion. Like, if the frame is anamorphic and it's all cropped in and it's really tight, or it's more of an academy ratio where it's all kind of taller, or a 4:3, or there's all those different things, color timing and what colors mean to us. These are all super interesting that we've gotten to this point to where visual media and visual storytelling, like the end user, us, the audience, we're so advanced in it.
Yes.
We're so mindful of it. And then on the filmmaking side, we're really, really mindful of it too. Whereas whenever filmmaking had, first started, it's not like they thought about those things. They didn't really think, at least I don't think they did.
Yeah.
I don't think that there was a lot of emphasis on the aspect ratios, right? Because they were limited to what the film stock could provide, right? Now we can do all kinds of custom aspect ratios. We could do the weirdest cropping and weirdest aspect ratios ever. And also we're thinking about it from a mobile perspective too, like, people are consuming so much content here. So how do we break through that? We're so much more literate when it comes to visuals because of Instagram as well. And like, what an Instagram post says to us from a visual standpoint. So it's super interesting.
Flash of a second, like immediately.
Right.
It's not even just like stewing on it. Like, how can we immediately get this information as we're scrolling through, like a constant scroll?
Right.
Unbelievable.
Right. Yeah. It's so fast. It's amazing. And I'm sure there's some concern about just how much, maybe that's the positive of social, and I'm sure there's some negatives of it too, of course, but it's like, to your point, it's so visual and it's so fast. We're super visual people now.
Yeah.
And yeah, to your point about not reading not reading, but not reading as much as what your father, obviously being a librarian, gosh, that's probably a lot of pressure to read a lot of books.
Yeah. Well, the ironic thing is he always brought home the DVDs for us to watch. That's how I got into movies. So
there you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
But there's also too I guess I'm a very visual person. That's what I automatically go to. But there's that, of course, the auditory part of it as well. Like how do certain cues, well, we had those tornado sirens recently, And as I'm driving by, I'm like, oh, that's a great horror movie sound, you know? Like, I'm just like just certain sounds remind me of certain things in movies. If I'm driving and I hear a certain song and it's a certain like kind of day, a certain temperature and a certain, like if it's sunny, I think, oh, what a movie's like a soundtrack right there. Like that's a certain emotion conveyed. So we also have that auditory thing, like our phones are beeping at us to make these different tones and stuff. Yeah, that's just the combination of the visual and the sonic information is, I think that further adds to your literacy there. If you hear a Instagram notification or an Apple text notification across the room, you automatically know what it is too.
Mm-hmm.
So
absolutely,
as compared to I guess traditional literacy, yeah, we're maybe lacking, but definitely in the other realms of I guess kind of more abstract places, we're so advanced and so particular.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I wonder if if you hear a Instagram notification or a notification, if it's a positive feeling for us, is it?
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's probably different for everyone, right? Mm-hmm. But is it a positive or is it a negative feeling? Does it add stress or does it alleviate stress and kind of give us a dopamine rush that makes us feel good?
It's probably both at the same time.
Probably so. Probably so. Yeah, which is it's so different than what you would be able to get from a book, and what I in some ways, I wish that I had more desire to crack open a book, and maybe as I get older and age like we all are doing right now, maybe I will get into books more at an older age. I just have never been able to, purposefully sit down and really dig into a book. It's taken me, one of the books that I remember reading is Franz Kafka's Metamorphoses. And it took me, 6 months or something to read this book. And I just kept going, and I would go without reading it for, weeks, and I had to like circle back and like, wait, where was I? What was that scene before that? So then I had to like go pages and pages, sometimes chapters before that to really wrap my head around it. And then, but this is a novella. It's like a 60-page deal. Wow. It should not take me 6 months to read. It should have been like a weekend read, you know? But it did leave an impact on me. And something that books do that I think films do as well, but maybe in a different way. But that, in my mind, I was like painting or filming or like making the movie of Metamorphosis in my mind as I was reading it, right? So like in my mind, whenever he turns into a bug, spoiler alert, he turns into a bug in that book. It's pretty weird, pretty out there. But I have a visual of what that looks like. That is probably way different than everybody else's visual, and their visuals are way different than everybody else's visuals. So the thing that maybe we're losing as we get more visually literate and literate with film, like the two of us are, maybe what we're losing is that creative thing that you get from books, is that the author is giving you a roadmap, but you're making the visuals in your head. So maybe that's what we're losing.
So we unfortunately have some technical difficulties. I'm going to change the issue. It's happened a couple times on this podcast already. We're still early. We're still working out the kinks, but yeah, that's ridiculous that is a problem. So we're going to go straight to the thing that's very important I want you to end off with, which is, which I guess is I sent you the question, which is what is your offer? And you thought of this on your own. So what's your offer, if you will?
Yeah, initially I was curious. I was like, I wonder what Josh means by that. If it's an offer, like an actual offer, buy one, get one, it's a certain type of offer like that, or some sort of a deeper offer, and I was thinking about this a little bit over the weekend because I'm a huge MMA fan, and UFC 285 just happened on Saturday, which is probably one of the biggest UFC fights. Probably like I don't know, over the past 5 years or something.
Nice.
Big. I mean, it was huge. And I think it broke some pretty big records, like the biggest or the most popular, the most tickets sold, most pay-per-view buys for a heavyweight match ever, right? And so it was a big deal. And the main event, you know, the whole fight card was amazing, but the main event was between Cyril Gane, who's from France, and John Jones, who's, you know, born and raised in the U.S. And it was a beautiful fight. And so I was thinking about, like, you know, the offer thing and kind of like what I want to do more of. And so maybe it's an offer to myself or like a challenge to others is to be more forgiving. Right. And forgiveness is so important. And the reason why UFC has anything to do with this is because John Jones has had like a lot of like outside the cage, outside the ring. You know, UFC doesn't fight in a ring; they fight in a cage. But like outside the cage issues with the police and the law, and he's struggled with a lot of personal things. And but he's so, you know, in front of the cameras and the way that he comes across, especially because he's been out of the UFC world for 3 years and he's just coming back, and he proved himself not only like in the cage as the greatest fighter of all time, at least within MMA, and you could probably like stack him and Muhammad Ali side by side and say, you know, these are probably two of the greatest fighters ever. Wow. And John Jones is somebody who struggled with personal issues outside, but I've seen just over the weekend so much forgiveness for any of his past issues that it made me realize, like, we're really forgiving, you know, which we should be, you know, but it was great to see that, you know, people can mess up. We all mess up over and over again. And that forgiveness is so important because we're all fallible and we all make mistakes, and you know, sometimes we'll make the same mistake over and over again, and forgiveness is so important. And so it was top of mind this morning whenever we got together, and it's just something that's really top of mind for me right now because of that, but hopefully it's just top of mind in general. So yeah, my offer would be you know, for others to forgive as much as possible, and for us all to forgive.
That's beautiful. Wow. Yeah, that's a thinker for sure. Yeah. Well, we're gonna stop it on that note. I don't want to get cut off on any other very important note, but yeah, sure. I love that forgiveness.
Indeed.
Beautiful.
Indeed. Hey, thanks, Josh. Cheers to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Cheers.
Thanks for having me.
Of course.